other day, when I made my video about Alan Parr apologizing for his Beyonce album breakdown, some people thought I was too harsh. Some believed I was emotional. Others said my tone was way too mean. And some said I lacked any nuance in my assessment of what had transpired. Among that group is notable Christian YouTuber Paul from the Paul and Morgan channel, someone I consider a friend. And Paul made a response video to my video going over some of his concerns about what I said. In my original video, I said that people who were offended by Alan Parr's thumbnail and graphic of the video fell into two categories. One, hypothetically being concerned for someone somewhere being caused to stumble, and two, people who were actually caused to stumble and need to get their butt off the internet. Paul believes that there's a third option. Men who want to guard their eyes and protect their hearts, and they're very careful about what they consume on the internet. But they don't necessarily struggle with lust or addiction to PORN. So in this video, Paul and I are gonna talk about if men who struggle with this need to just get their butt off the internet, or if it's women's fault and they need to stop posting provocative posts.
Ruslan.
I didn't know that it was you who sent Alan Parr a DM. Obviously, there were other people that sent Alan Parr a DM, but apparently it was you. I didn't know that at the time. I've always been very fond of you and Morgan. You guys got a baby on the way. Congratulations to you. And so let's jump into it, man. If you wanna just kind of give me your framework, and we'll kind of work through it together.
Love it, love it. Well, first off, thanks for having me on, dude. This is a lot of fun for me. Two bros, both love the Lord, seeing something a little differently, and I find that these type of conversations can and should be very beneficial and edifying, rather than, they don't need to be divisive. This can be edifying for the body of Christ at large. I'm grateful to be on here with you. Yeah, so the other night I hopped on your live stream because I was like, okay, I got some skin in the game. I sent Alan the DM. He was super respectful. I was respectful. And then I saw you making the video, and I'm sure I could tell, well, you were very passionate, like right out of the gate when I started hearing you.
Yeah, I'm always passionate.
You're always passionate, but I've rarely heard you be that passionate. So it caught me off guard, which passion's awesome. But yeah, I hopped on, and you were given the two categories of who you felt like, and correct me if I say anything wrong, but who you felt like perhaps messaged Alan. First off, it came across to me watching your video like whoever messaged Alan, they were in the wrong. And so right off the bat, I was kind of like, okay, so I was the one who messaged Alan. He messaged me back. So why is Ruslan kind of making, and you're all about nuance. So I was like, why is he kind of making these blanket statements that anyone who would message Alan about using the initial picture of Beyonce's album cover, why would he be calling that wrong? And so there's a kind of interesting starting point.
Yeah, and I by the way, I watched your response video. I watched the whole thing, so I totally understand where you're coming from. So it sounds like you believe. I believe there's two categories. I believe that there are Christians who are being the internet police. They're not really affected by Beyonce. They just don't like how something looks. And then I would say there are Christians that are really struggling with this, and I would say get your butt off the internet. It's two categories. You would say there is a third category, and help me understand that third category a bit more.
Yeah, sure. Well, when I heard you give, see you, Morgan, love you, baby. When I heard you give the first category, I was upstairs. It was 10:15 p.m. Eastern time. And so I was like, okay, what's Ruslan going to say here? You give the first category, the internet, kind of the internet police, doesn't necessarily affect them. And I'm like, okay, not me. I don't think that's me. I'll wait and hear the second category. He's going to say, the second category is just someone who loves Alan, is a brother in Christ, and maybe just said, hey, dude, probably wasn't the best idea. But to my surprise, you came down really, you said you had some empathy for the second category, but it came across, well, I guess here's my issue. You gave two categories, and that was kind of like where it stopped. And so I'm waiting like, okay, I'm not in the first category. I don't have a PORN addiction. So I'm not in the second category. And then you just kind of left it. And so in my mind, I'm like, I'm not in that category. There are plenty of other men. I said in our video that I made, I called two of my good friends that I consider just strong men of God. They were in my category. So I'm like, why didn't Ruslan bring up a third category of men that I would just, to say it very simply, would be men that are very careful what they watch, careful what they listen to, careful what comes through the windows of our soul, and just want to protect our purity. We're not addicted. We're not a slave to lust and PORN, but we are very careful with what we see, and therefore that category perhaps messaged Alan and said, "Hey, bro, I feel like with that image being what I consider, and you can correct me if you see it differently, but what I consider a very sensual, please, by all means, share your side here. I would consider that a sensual, explicit picture. Would you say that you don't consider that a explicit picture?
I see that picture, and I see an attractive 40-plus-year-old musical icon who is attempting to compete with women half her age to be relevant, and I don't see her needing to do that. I don't see that photo as explicit because she's in a bathing suit. If it was explicit, it would not have a bathing suit. And if she wanted to do that, she could have done that, which is why I was taken aback for her like Alan taking the photo down. I was like, well, what did he post? I thought maybe there was a different photo, like right? Because again, album cover, there's a framing of it, right? So it's not like it's like chest up, just cleavage. She's on a horse, she's in a bathing suit. So no, I don't think that photo is explicit because I don't think the female's body is explicit. I don't think a bathing suit is explicit. I don't think yoga pants are explicit. I don't think, wearing a bikini is explicit in and of itself. I think that those are things that people wear all the time. And whether or not I think the photo was in bad taste. By the way, I do think the photo is in bad taste. I think Beyonce is overcompensating. And I think it's really sad that someone at her stature who's worth, north of $1 billion is having to do this sort of stuff to compete with whoever she thinks, or why she would even still do this. I don't think that photo is explicit. I don't think it meets the definition of explicit. I think it's, I guess, edgy. I think it's, her attempting to be relevant, but no, I don't think it's explicit in the technical definition and in the cultural norm definition. You can walk into any Walmart and that picture is going to be out. You can pull up any DSP, and DSP is Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, Amazon Music. That picture is going to be plastered over all of it. You could pull up anywhere, and that picture is going to be. So just by that definition, that's not an explicit photo. That's a photo of a woman in a bathing suit.
So you, in your mind, would not call that photo explicit.
It's provocative. It's not explicit.
I'm fine with conceding that from your angle, but you would, just as I would say, if you look at that photo and you see it, it's a fine, attractive woman, but I could care less, doesn't get to me, doesn't cause me any type of temptation, move right along. That's fine if that's you. But wouldn't you, Ruslan, concede that there are probably a number of men like me and women as well, and vice versa, all that stuff, but plenty of men in my camp that would see that, and it could very well be a temptation. And I know you're kind of saying like these type of photos it's just all the time, every day, there's all kinds of stuff like this. Fair enough, but I think there's less of this type of stuff when you are very careful and very vigilant with the type of scenarios you put yourself in. And for me, I only follow like 125 Instagram people. I'm very careful with who I follow because I don't want to see that stuff popping up in my feed. And when Alan posted it, I saw it first on YouTube, and then I got on Instagram and I saw that he posted it on there, and he posted it on his story. And I'm like, whoa, I feel like personally, and I love Alan. I love you. And I don't just say that like I love you. Like I genuinely really appreciate you guys and what you do. But I feel like Alan, with his platform, should have been a safe place for people like me that are really vigilant in protecting what comes through our eyes that can lust and can be very well tempted. And so really trying to avoid that. So I guess my question for you is, wouldn't you concede that, yes, there probably are plenty of men that would find that explicit or tempting or, easily to start taking them down a path of lust if they let it?
And I would say those men shouldn't be on the internet. I hate to be that cut and dry and that polarizing, but I would say those men shouldn't be on the internet. If that, and I don't, so when you say tempting, like you have to define, what are we tempting? What is that tempting you to do? Is that tempting you to marinate on her body? Is that tempting you to go look at porn? Like, what is that tempting you to do? And I would say then the logical conclusion, because there's a couple different topics we're dealing with here. I would say, what is the logical conclusion of this, right? Are you then avoiding the beach? Are you avoiding the pool? Are you avoiding the mall? Are you avoiding the gym? Those would be my questions, because if we're going to have just scales, we're going to have just scales. That's one side of the equation, right? Are you avoiding everything else, and are you being consistent in every other area? The other conversation is, was it wise for Alan to post that image without it being blurred? And I think we could have the wisdom conversation, right? We could have the wisdom conversation and say, well, Alan is a minister and he has a predominantly Christian audience, that yada, yada, yada. And we could have a wisdom conversation. But what it wasn't a wisdom conversation. It seemed like, again, outside looking in, it seemed like people piled on and he felt this need to do this apology. And I know Alan, I could tell the look on his face was like, whoa. So that will be my question, is like, that's a wisdom issue. We can discuss that, right? I'll be honest with you. If I were to do the exact same video, I'm not blurring it, right? There would be probably someone, maybe Zach will probably be the guy that's like, we might want to blur this one out, right? But we get into stuff like, we'll use B-roll of women at a whatever, we're discussing a topic of something going on in the world, and we'll get emails like, you used B-roll and there was B-roll of women in the pool, and oh my gosh, I can't believe you'd post this kind of stuff. And it's literally like a third of a second. I've reacted to articles and there's been ads of women that I'm not even paying attention to stuff because I'm reading the article, and we'll get emails about that sort of stuff. So me personally, I'm not censoring the photo, but I have a team around me that may, and if Alan felt like it wasn't that significant to censor it initially, I think that's his discretion, and he got to use wisdom, and that's a different conversation versus making the accusation that this is causing men to stumble. I think that's the issue where I go, wait a minute, if this is really causing people to stumble, they should be off of the internet. That is not unreasonable. That is a very reasonable conclusion, and they should not be at the gym. They should not be at the pool. They should not be at the beach. Keep your butt at home. Stay your butt at home. And I'll get into the deeper issue. So that's my. So I think there's two different conversations we're having, right?
So, let me just say with that real quick then. So I just want it to be clear to the viewers, and clear to myself. You're ultimately saying, in your mind, the category that I'm describing that I felt like you missed, and in my video I said he either just didn't think of it or he refuses to acknowledge it. It sounds like in your mind you're just refusing to acknowledge that there is a third category of guys that kind of I would acknowledge there's a third category of guys. I want to get into this third category of guys with you.
Okay. That's where I'm concerned. Hear me loud and clear. This is where I get concerned for the culture that we're building as Christians. This is where I go, wait a minute, because now why is there this third category of guys? Because now are we saying that the woman's body in and of itself is sinful? And you saw the video of the guy confronting random non-Christians at a beach and telling them, we both made videos to it, and telling them, you need to cover up. I'm out here with kids. And there's just random girls at a beach. Right? This is how damaging this is going to be to young women, that as their bodies start changing, right? And now they feel this overwhelming pressure that they are responsible for men's sexuality. So Paul, that is not healthy. And this is the pushback that the world gives with purity culture. It is not women's job to be concerned about our sexuality. If she's a sister in Christ and she wants to practice modesty because that's her values, that's different. But when we start doing this and walking up to random girls at the beach and telling them they need to cover up and in the name of Jesus, Paul, that is not healthy. That is not good. That is not a good representation of the gospel. That's toxic, bro.
I'm not going to defend that type of behavior, walking up to random girls. That is another topic that I'm sure.
So we agree that the dude who did that at the beach was totally out of pocket.
We can come back to that if you want, but just real quick with the Beyonce, I just want to make sure I'm hearing you right. So in your mind, the photo of Beyonce on top of the horse, it's just hard for me. Like, I want to make sure I'm hearing it right. It's hard for me to grasp that you would say this is not explicit. This shouldn't be in any way a temptation for what I would perceive to be so many guys what would you say to, again, my friend that I called two guys, because I was just like, I don't want to have a major blind spot. Morgan's my wife. Just because I run it by her and say, look at this picture, Morgan. Am I crazy to think that this is an inappropriate picture that probably shouldn't be broadcasted by a preacher that has a big Christian audience? Just because Morgan agrees with me, I called two of my friends. Neither of them, to my knowledge at all, I'm confident, are addicted to PORN. Dudes kind of in my camp. And I said, just weigh in on this situation. I'm having this
I
back and forth
you
with
had the
Ruslan.
conversation. I get it.
And he, dude, one of my friends, he said, let me think about it. He responded, he said, that is ultimately, that is a very inappropriate, explicit picture. So just to hear you say,
so again, we have to define terms properly. Okay? I don't think an explicit photo can be up at Walmart. I don't think an explicit photo can be on every single app that plays music. We have to define our terms properly, okay? When you're saying explicit, I'm thinking the line at PORN. That to me is what is explicit. If you want to say provocative, if you want to say risque, if you want to say whatever, that's different, okay? So I think one, we have to define those terms. So you keep using the word explicit. I'm saying I don't believe that's explicit based on the textbook definition of what is explicit within our society. I don't think that's explicit on that. Is it appropriate?
We can debate the words.
Sure. Is it appropriate for a woman of 42 years old to be in a bathing suit on a horse? That's a different conversation, right? And so the problem becomes, you're saying it's explicit and all these other people over here agree it's explicit. I'm like, if we're talking about the standards of what's happening based on how this is being judged and where this is being framed, this in and of itself is not an quote-unquote explicit photo. This is a provocative photo. She's trying to get attention. It is a thirst trap. I will give you all of that, okay?
Okay.
It is
all
a
right,
thirst
fair
trap,
enough.
okay? So the thirst trap is an element that is not explicit, because if it was explicit, it wouldn't be allowed to be on Instagram. It wouldn't be allowed to be on Twitter. But I think we're getting into the semantics of what is and isn't explicit. Okay?
Would you be okay if your 13-year-old son, you posted that photo to your thumbnail and you knew your 13-year-old son watched your stuff regularly and he came and he just was staring at it? Would you be like, he's fine?
Well, first of all, I don't have a 13-year-old son. I have a 7-year-old son. And we just went to Las Vegas, okay? Now, some of you guys are going to think this is crazy for me, right? But again, we've had these conversations with my son since he was like 3 or 4. He understands biology. He understands this stuff, right? He understands daddy has a sperm. He doesn't understand the pleasure part, but he understands it all. We just went to Vegas, and we were on the Vegas Strip, right? And on the Vegas Strip, we were just minding our own business. There was girls walking up in bikinis asking if they wanted to take a photo with my 7-year-old. Okay? No, I wasn't angry at those girls. I wasn't mad at them. I wasn't frustrated with them. It is what it is. We went into an element where there's going to be this energy, and he didn't think nothing of it. He brushed it off. He kept it pushing, right? And they were wearing almost identical to what Beyonce was wearing, right? And so, like, am I losing it over this sort of stuff? No, I'm not, because my son understands what a woman's body is. My son understands what a penis is and what a vagina is. He understands these things, right? And so, again, when I go into those elements, I'm not mad at Vegas. I'm not mad at Las Vegas. I'm not mad at the Strip. I'm not mad at anybody.
You're taking your son to Vegas, though. That's a little different than your son getting on, a trusted Christian YouTube channel. And
But
seeing
no,
it.
but it's the same thing. That's the point I was driving home. They're the same thing. The beach is Instagram, is the Las Vegas Strip, is YouTube. They're all one and the same. We can't sit here and create safe spaces. You know who likes to create safe spaces, Paul? People who are in the LGBTQ, you got to coddle them and they need to have a safe space. Like, we can't be like the world in that regard, where everybody needs to coddle our feelings and everybody needs to cater to us. And listen, there's a dark, serious world out there. And when those things happen, we need to have those mature conversations as Christians. Okay, so no, YouTube, Instagram, the beach, TikTok, the Las Vegas Strip, South Beach in Florida, they're all one and the same. There is no safe spaces for Christians. That's a really silly notion, because you're using like fringe LGBTQIA language.
I hear what you're saying. So I talked to another friend of mine. I called him, and he shared, Paul, I do have to take, and I'm in this same boat, because you mentioned like the gym, for instance. I need to be, and so you're about to, I think we're about to get into like, what is this third category? And I'll just be real with you about what I feel like it is. But when I'm going to the gym, if it is kind of the peak hour, I'm having to, not every time, but I may, while I'm kind of warming up on the track, be having to pray and say, like, Lord, just help me to protect my eyes, where my eyes go. My friend that I talked to right before making the video, responding to you, he said, Paul, I had to stop going to the pool in my apartment complex just for a period of time, because I could tell my eyes started wandering and it started creating lustful stuff in my head. I had to stop going for a time. That doesn't mean he can never go to a pool. It doesn't mean he can never go to the mall. It doesn't mean that he has to get rid of his YouTube account and stuff, because he's not addicted to it. He's not a slave to it. If he was, I agree with you. I applaud you for how intense you took it in your video, that if you are addicted, then get out of there. But again, what I'm pushing back on is that you're not conceding a third category, which would be like my friend who said, for a time, I'm going to pull away from the pool. It doesn't mean that he has to just remove himself and live under a rock.
Yeah. And so again, do you understand why why I'm saying this third category is kind of nonsense? Can you steel man my position? Do you understand why I'm making that statement?
No third category. I watched your video, and I hear your side. I still disagree, but I do hear your side, that it's still two categories.
So let me break it down. So let's just do the logical conclusion. Let's go down the slippery slope. At what point do you draw the line for other women being responsible, and what environments you're in? At what point do we draw the line and go, we can't act like the world is here to coddle us, and we have to be responsible as men for our sexuality? Where do you draw that line? Where do you go, we can't just say everything is going to cause somebody to say? Where do you draw the line? Where do we go, you know what? Is it shorts? Women can't wear shorts? Is it a bathing suit? Where do we go, hey, this is on men to deal with it?
Men, it ultimately is on you. It's kind of like what you said. If you're getting caused to go down that path, to stumble, to fall, to lust, like Jesus said, you're going to give account before God for what you chose to do with your eyes, with your body, 100%. With your mind, with your heart.
Okay.
When I go to the pool, I may be like, wow, culture has really gotten where they're wearing little more and more or less and less clothing, but I'm not going to hold them accountable. The Apostle Paul said, what do we have? What responsibility is it of ours to hold the world accountable?
1 Corinthians 5, absolutely. Okay.
Very nice. When I go to the beach, if I decide I'm going to go to Vegas, if I decide I'm going to go to, occasionally I'll listen to Joe Rogan. I'm probably going to hear F-bombs, but I appreciate his perspective. And sometimes I'll listen to him knowing that's likely to happen. But again, I feel like there are places, and that's when Morgan and I and a friend made a video called Christian Modesty - Bikinis. And we gave our perspective on that. We feel like when talking to the church, there should be a different standard than when you're talking with the world. And Paul says it's not our job to judge those outside of the church, but how much is it our job to hold the church accountable?
Yes.
So
yes. And so
we're talking,
if you and your wife want to have a conversation with other Christian women about Christian modesty, that's a different conversation we're having. I'm saying, at what point do men stop blaming everything about their environment and the systems around them and the society and being victims, because it sounds a lot like a victim mentality to me. And we take accountability and we say, you know what? My sexuality is my responsibility. Where do we draw that line? Is it women with shorts? Is it because I know guys that can pervert anything, Paul. I know guys that she was just, it was just her looking at me, her smile made me think a lustful thought, right? So again, where do you draw that line? Does it have to be a one piece bathing suit, or can it be a 2-piece bathing suit? Like, and again, I think some of this is cultural. Like, I think I'm in Southern California, right? When we go to the beach, some of the women from church are going to wear a 2-piece. Some of them are going to wear a 1-piece. Some of them are going to wear a t-shirt and be in the water with the t-shirt. None of that is their fault if I choose to and take that second glance. That's not their fault. That's my fault and my choice. That's what I'm saying. So where do we draw that line?
Well, people like to use kind of the argument that you did, which is there's guys that are going to lust, and a lot of women like to use that argument in order to dress more sensual, more provocative. They love to use the argument, no matter what I wear, guys are going to lust.
That's
guys
not
are
the
going to be
argument
a
I'm
lot. Okay, fine.
I'm not talking about women. Women need to talk to women. I'm talking to men.
Into this kind of the same category.
No, I'm talking to men though.
But you said guys are going to lust no matter what. Some guys. Fair enough.
Some guys,
but
because they're perverted. And I was perverted, and I needed somebody to be honest with me and tell me the truth.
Okay, but there's going to be a lot more guys lusting after a picture of Beyonce on top of a horse, her breasts almost fully shown, wearing barely any clothes. A lot more guys are going to lust at that than if she had on a dress that covered her body.
I think people are going to lust after Beyonce regardless what she's wearing. She's positioned herself as a diva, and there's guys that will look at a picture of her face.
Bro.
There's guys that will look at her in a dress at the Grammys, and people are going to lust regardless. That's what I'm saying.
If she was wearing a full-length dress that covered her breasts and her butt,
that's not how she.
You really think the same amount of guys are going to be?
No, not the same amount. We're not talking about the same amount. We're talking about there's going to be guys that see her figure and they're going to lust regardless. Okay, so I'm speaking to men. I'm speaking to men. Maybe how do we quantify that, right? Like, I'm speaking to men who are saying it's everyone else's fault, and I need people to coddle me like I'm a child because the world is a dark place. And I'm saying, listen, the world is a dark place, and we have to grow up and deal with this as men. And I'm providing resources for men to help them work through this instead of allowing them to be victims. So I'm asking you the question: where do we draw the line? Because I think people can be caused to stumble by a ton of different things. I think people can be caused to stumble by hearing certain things, by reading certain things, right? By hearing certain conversations. So I'm going to play something for you, and I want you to tell me if you think that this could possibly cause someone to stumble. Hopefully you could hear it. Tell me what you think about this. And by the way, this is something I think you guys do that's helpful and good. So this is not me trying to gotcha. This is something I think you guys do that's helpful and good.
Not like when you were single.
I see. Very.
Question one.
There have been times where Paul's like, babe, like maybe we went a few days longer than we normally would. And he'd just be like, babe, I really am thinking about sex a lot right now. So that's a hint to me.
You guys, this is married life. I said this about your one of your recent vlogs on your channel. We have to, those of you who are kind of like, ooh, why are they talking about this?
Which no one was like that, so.
But we got to destigmatize. I know we're kind of laughing up here, but like we got to kind of destigmatize healthy conversations around sex, the sexes.
Definitely. 4.
Okay, so you said we have to destigmatize this. You guys are talking about intimacy in your own marriage bed, right? You're saying, man, Paul out here getting it every other day. Shout out to you, right? That's amazing. Like, good. I think you guys are doing a good job talking about this sort of stuff. But do you understand that there are men who are going through a season that could say that causes them to stumble. Hearing her say that back to you, hearing these details of your life can cause, quote unquote, cause someone to stumble. That it's the same slippery slope that you're going to go down when you say, oh, it's been a little I've been thinking, right? It's the same exact logic that you will cause someone to stumble. And someone can say the very same thing about the type of content you're making.
Pulling up a video from the archives, doing some research.
It wasn't that old. I watch you guys' videos.
No, I appreciate it, dude. I appreciate it. That's actually fun. It's fun to watch that back. I see what you're saying. And I think you could always make an argument for slippery slopes, one place ending up somewhere else. And yeah, I mean, I see. Here's the thing. If someone after us making that video were to message me, and not just like, and you alluded to this in your previous video, mm-hmm. You said being an influencer, you're always subject to people jumping in and weighing in saying you went too far. We've had that. I used to have a cat statue that I got from my grandma, and we had people messaging me saying that could hold demons in it, like that's an idol. Mm-hmm. So fair enough. There's all kinds of people out there that are ready to weigh in. If I were to have a number of people after that video DM me, if you had DM'd me, or if Alan, or maybe even a super conservative person had DM'd me and said, Paul, I feel like that could cause someone to stumble, I would have to take that, and I'd have to, specifically someone that I trusted and loved mm-hmm. as a brother mm-hmm. in the Lord or sister in the Lord. Sure. I'd talk to Morgan about it. I might talk to someone like another kind of spiritual figure in my life mm-hmm. and decide, is this something we should maybe take down? There is always going to be the spectrum. I don't think we can always just say, see, this thing that happened equates to this thing, because mm-hmm. that's not always the case. It's just common sense that can be very different levels of severity.
Yes, and that is my exact point, is that there's different levels of severity. This is a cover that's on every billboard everywhere, and this is a woman talking about stuff she's doing in her marriage, by the way, right? And you're creating content to help people based on the experience you guys have had of being married for 6 years and sharing the different intricacies of your marriage. And there can be a man, this is me playing the hypothetical group one, there can be a man that's going through a season where his wife just had a baby and they're not doing anything, and he's honoring her.
Maybe me coming up here soon.
Right. And they got to go 3, 4, 5 months. And then they click on your video, and you're talking about getting it every other night, right? And that can cause somebody to stumble.
How far did we go, though?
I think that is up to the person listening. That's where you can go. That is up to the person listening. I think it can go really far. You're talking about the frequency. You're talking about the details, the tone of it. I think it can go either way. And so what I'm saying is, we can't just say it's the woman's body. It could be all types of things. But I would say to you, Paul, if someone were to say that, I would say they're tripping. They're off. You got to sort that out. That's not Paul and Morgan's fault. That's your fault. You need to work through that. That's no one's fault. That's someone that someone can take that and say, well, they're talking about this and they're talking about that and da 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 da. It's a silly notion, because you're policing the internet for other people's issues, and it has nothing to do with you. Again, this is a different topic of like whether it was wise or not.
I hear that side. We have in past videos where we know we're going to talk about, sex inside of marriage, which I agree with you. These are very healthy conversations to be had, but oftentimes we will say, or we have said at the beginning of our videos, guys, if you're single, if you don't see yourself being married for a while, viewer discretion advised. And I guess that's what I would push back on Alan's choice to use that. And I'm really grateful, even though you kind of disagree, I'm grateful that he changed it. We do not have viewer discretion advised when you put a big photo of Beyonce almost naked on a horse. I'm getting on my phone. I probably saw that photo 7 times. Just through me getting on, I hadn't watched the video, and it just popped up again, and then on Instagram.
You saw it all from Alan Parr 7 times?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, see, probably. I saw it about 25, 50 times everywhere besides Alan Parr. So I'm just like, oh, that's Beyonce trying to be cool and hip, and it's cringe. To me, that photo is cringe. That's what that is. Okay. Like it's a cringe photo.
To me, it's not. To me, it's not cringe. But so I guess that's just where we're different. But you would say, though, there's plenty of guys that it's not going to be cringe to. It's going to be, if I keep looking at that, I could see myself slipping into some thoughts that I shouldn't have. So I'm going to look away quickly. And then I look away and I see it again an hour later. They should look away.
they should look away, and they shouldn't click in the video, and they should keep it pushing. So my question goes, where do we draw the line? Where do we go? We can't. We have to say, let's let people be people. And again, going back to the question I asked you earlier, is it appropriate for a man to walk up to girls at a beach like that Twitter video and tell them that they're being immodest and that they shouldn't do that? Like this, because again, here are the implications of what kind of culture we're creating. Are we creating a culture where the woman's body in and of itself is what's causing guys to stumble? Because I'm sure the ladies in this chat will tell you, there's been women that have been told that them breastfeeding is gross and disgusting, and how can you do this in public? There's been these, and we saw the viral video of In the Name of Jesus walking up to random girls at a beach and telling them that they're being, right? So like, are you co-signing that kind of stuff? Is it because we can't make the woman's body the issue that is the sin? The woman's body is not the sin. It's what men do in their evil heart. Jesus says it's out of the evil in your heart that sexual immorality happens. It's not from the woman's body. We take the woman's body and we pervert it. We walked around naked in the garden, according to Genesis. Adam and Eve walked around naked in the garden. So we take this thing and we pervert it, and we make it something that's an object and not a blessing and in the proper context. So that's what I mean by culture. Like, we're creating this purity culture that a lot of people are like, it's an overwhelming amount of pressure to put on everyone to feel like women have to consider every single guy everywhere because she might be too attractive. She might be too whatever. And I hear you. There's a difference between wanting to look cute and wanting to be sexy and let it all hang out. I hear you. I'm saying, do you understand that when we say the woman's body is the issue, that is a very problematic thing? And so my question to you, gentlemen at the beach, pulling up on random girls, teenage girls, telling them they were being immodest, is that appropriate? Do you think that's a good look for the gospel?
So I think with any major headline story, we got to look at the details of it. Ultimately, I would pretty quickly say, no, you're at a beach. That's going to happen. And when I watched that video and Morgan and I reacted to it on the channel, I'm pretty sure we said that, like, bro, you're at a beach and now you're going to just go into this kind of rebuking preacher mode. Doesn't make a lot of sense. It seems weird. It's weird. But I do think when you look at the scenario a little bit more, I still think it's weird at the end of the day. But he was with his family. There was kids, and he felt inclined to go up and say, hey, ladies, you should show some decency. I tend to say he went too far, public beach, but I get a little bit of just that, like, I want to protect my 12-year-old niece or nephew that's here. I see that side, but no, I think it was ultimately out of line, too far.
So So again, and we agree that it's not the woman's body that's the sin. Can we agree on that?
That it's not the.
A woman's naked body is not what is sinful.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. And the sin comes from where?
Right. The sin comes from the heart that decides to lust over it.
The sin comes from the man's heart that sees something and perverts it and twists it into something it was never intended to be, which was just an object.
But some women do intend it.
Some women do.
I would say Beyonce definitely does.
Okay,
she
I'm talking
intends
about
for it to cause men to lust after her.
Okay,
I would say
so what I'm saying is it Beyonce's body that's sinful, or is it the man that's looking at Beyonce and the perversion in his heart that's the issue?
Yeah, it's ultimately the man, and that's where I would say, so men, whether you have a issue with PORN and you're addicted to it, or whether you're just trying to keep your heart pure, both of them should not be a fan of that picture and of it popping up in front of their face.
Yeah, I'm not talking about being a fan. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying this is the reality that we live in. This is the society that we live in. There's going to be attractive people. There's going to be women in yoga shorts. And whether or not we decide to engage in that I want to deal with that. I want to deal with the heart of that and not what's happening in a peripheral and not what's happening there. And again, I'm calling men Go ahead.
You just so you said the picture, the Beyonce cover that he used, you ended up seeing it. You said how many times?
I mean, I saw it all over Twitter. I saw it on billboards. I saw it everywhere. It was everywhere.
Which, fair enough, and I'm sure plenty of people did. I think I saw it 7 times on Brother Allen's posts, and then 1 time at Walmart. So there are different.
So you saw
people.
it at Walmart. So do you go to
Walmart?
Do you go to Walmart, which is a Christian-owned company, supposedly, to take it down?
I went and rebuked the manager. Yeah.
You went and rebuked. Okay, I was gonna say, dude, if you went and did that,
you can make a response video.
That would have been gangster if you went and did that.
No.
Straight up. So you saw it at Walmart, and you didn't take it upon yourself to go and say, "Can you believe it? There's children around. I'm a Christian man. You guys are supposed to be a Christian company, right?" You didn't do that.
I did. I may have not this time, but I have turned magazines around before at stores. But that's another topic.
Okay,
so,
but do you see what I'm saying? Though Walmart is Instagram.
Fair enough. But I will say though, just to prove my point or make a point, I saw it one other time outside of Alan. To my knowledge, off the top of my head, one other time outside of Alan's posts. You saw it close to 20 times. There are plenty of people that are just maybe not as engaged in certain things on purpose and have decided here is what I can engage in so that these type of images don't pop up on my mind. Like my buddy that I called and talked to, he hadn't even seen the picture yet. This was yesterday before I made it, but he hadn't even seen it.
I've never heard WAP, and some people think that that's crazy, right? Like I've never heard the song WAP, right? And so I guess, and I've never heard Beyonce's album because I know that there are certain things that I need to stay away from. You guys think I'm not saying I'm a superhero, guys. I think you're missing the point. I'm not saying I'm a superhero and I'm out here just frolicking through Walmart looking at images of Beyonce. Like that's don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm telling you that because I know myself, I avoid things and I use wisdom. And if it's really going to be a hindrance, I just avoid it. But I also know that I live in a world where if I want to take my kids to the Strip in Vegas, if I want to go to a beach, there's going to be attractive women, and it's not them that's the issue. It's the way I am and the way I raise my son that is the ultimate crux of the issue. And so I think that what happens is we pawn this off on women, and we make it about women's bodies and women being modest and society and all that. And that just starts to sound a lot like a victim mentality. And I'm not for it. I don't think that's helpful. And I wish that when I was 21, 22, 25, 26, dealing with this stuff, that somebody was more brutally honest with me and told me the truth. Bro, it's not everybody else. The sin is in your heart. You need to work through that. You need to go to therapy. You need to go deal with that. And again, because I was that guy, right? I think that's that I'm concerned about. Listen, this is what I'm concerned about. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm concerned about my 6-year-old niece, that when she hits puberty and her body changes in a year, that all of a sudden she's wearing, whatever, yoga pants and whatever, and her body starts changing, that all of a sudden there's going to be this bizarre pressure from church folks. And she's going to think that her body is the issue. It's not her body that's the issue. Women need to teach women how to be modest. Women need to have that conversation with women, right? That's a separate conversation. But women are women. They're attractive. We like looking at attractive women as men. That is what it is. What we do with that second glance, that second thought, the like marinating on it, thinking about it, all of these different things, I think that's where we draw the line. So again, if I saw that cover a bunch of times and I didn't think to go and, if I could just imagine Beyonce twerking on me, like that didn't go through my mind. I was like, wow, Beyonce, she's attractive. Scroll. That's it. And every time I said she's attractive, okay, cool. Scroll. Next, right? That's what I'm saying. I think I want to see men come to that level, regardless on where you are on the spectrum. And if you can't just scroll, then just don't be on the internet. I don't think that's help me understand why that's unreasonable.
I see what you're saying. Let me ask you this. You're at the pool with your son. Say it's just the local pool, and a bus pulls, because what I hear you saying is it's not the woman's fault. A bus pulls up and it's Victoria's Secret swimsuit edition, and all the girls get out wearing string bikinis, and they come right over to where you are with your son, and they start kind of hitting beach balls and stuff. You're just going to say, son, look at this. This is just normal life, so enjoy it.
I'm not going to say, look at this, enjoy it. I'm going to assess the situation. I'm going to assess how bad it is, and we might leave. We might be like, yo, this is too much, right? We may not. We've been in both situations. We've been in situations where we've been at South Beach, and I made a video about this, and there's been women in the beach wild, and we've been like, yo, this is nuts. We gotta, let's pack it up. I've also been in situations where I'm in Florida and we're in a pool and we're hanging out and there's attractive women and we hang out and do our thing and we don't think twice about it. I've been in both types of situations. The issue is that
why
the
would
wisdom.
you leave the pool? Why would you leave the pool with the Victoria's Secret girls? Why would you leave if
because
you don't have
there's a difference.
lust?
Because there's a difference of the environment that's being created. If it starts becoming like a party environment, people are drinking and smoking, I'm way more concerned about that turning rowdy than a woman in a bathing suit. Right? Like, because I can look away.
No smoking, no drinking. No
yeah,
smoke,
like on
just
South
beach balls.
Beach, they're wilding out. Yeah. If smoking beach balls, again, it would depend. I would have to assess the situation and factor in all the variables. I would say, look at it, right, and keep it moving. Again,
so you deciding to leave. You deciding to leave when it's just beach balls, no smoking,
me deciding
no drinking,
to leave. Me deciding to leave is me deciding to delete Instagram.
So
me
you
deciding
leave,
to leave.
So you leave.
Is me deciding to delete Instagram.
So you leave the pool and then you say, "I'm never going to any more pools," because that's what it sounds like.
I might not go to that. I might not go to the hotel again.
That's where I'm having trouble. You might decide to leave and go to a different pool where it's not a Victoria's Secret photo shoot, because there's different levels, like you said, to the spectrum. Mm-hmm. So you saying that there's not a third category of guy that might not look at that picture, but now he needs to just completely get off social media. That's what it sounds like to me.
I'm saying the third category guy is half and half. He's half category 1, where he wants to police people and talk about hypotheticals, and he's half category 2. And I would tell that guy, hey, you either need to get off the internet or you need to be very, very, very careful with the type of stuff you're saying to Christian creators. That's what I would say. And I said that because folks are you guys know the type of comments you guys get, and you get reaction videos made about you, and you get all kinds of wild stuff that happens. So like, I'm saying, I don't want to see people pile on my friend Alan. I don't want to see that. If he decided to do that, and by the way, he changed the Instagram, he didn't change the YouTube version until after my video came out. Right?
That's true.
Because the backlash came on Instagram. And to me, I'm like, dude, Instagram is way worse than YouTube. You could be on YouTube and not get flooded with a bunch of nonsense. It's very difficult to be on Instagram and not get flooded with a bunch of nonsense. Very difficult. If you accidentally click that shop button, it's lights out. There's women everywhere, right? Selling freaking fanny packs and like toothpaste, like ridiculous stuff. So I'm saying, listen, like, to my heart is this. Let's be realistic. Let's be realistic about what kind of world we live in. Lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh, pride of life. Everything that sells in the world is going to be marketed around one of those three things, usually a combination. Lust of the eyes, sensual women, coveting after another woman's wife. Lust of the flesh, pleasure, dopamine, food, drugs, alcohol, pride of life, the need to be right about something. We live in a world that everything being sold to us is usually going to be anchored around those three things, one of those three things, if not more. I'm saying, hey, if this is the world we live in, I think we need to get realistic about what we are, that we're called to be ambassadors of Christ, that we're called to be ministers of reconciliation, that we're called to be set apart, and that can look different for every man. And instead of saying, let's create a safe space on Christian YouTube, or let's create a safe space for on Christian Instagram or Christian TikTok, I'm like, hey, if you really need a safe space, you might just want to sit this one out. That's what I'm saying in terms of the social media side of things, because you know how much of the triggers are going to come through social media anyway. So it's like telling a drunk guy, hey, I know you're trying to get clean. I know you're trying to get sober, but you can still come to the birthday party at the bar that's 21 and up that doesn't serve food. And like, I don't understand the logic with that. If you're an alcoholic, we could talk about the efficacy of running a bar and is that ethical and is that right? Like, that's a separate conversation. But because Beyonce's running a bar, but if you're an alcoholic and this is a thing, you have to take sober assessment and be like, fam, I have an issue with alcohol. Maybe I should sit this one out. Maybe I shouldn't even go to restaurants that serve alcohol for a while. Right? Yeah. That's what I'm getting at. Like, that's the heart and the crux of, and I still don't feel like men are hearing me about this. Yeah. Men are still relinquishing their responsibility and wanting a safe space. And I'm like, fam, like, that's very like, and I'm gonna be harsh here. Not you. This isn't directed to you, but the type of comment that I get, it comes off very like like floaty soy boy leftist wild beta energy to say like I need a safe space for me. Beta. I need a safe space. Like a Christian saying I need a safe space for me is like an alcoholic saying I want to go to a bar, but I need a safe space for me. That's how I feel, right?
Hey man,
and then the weaker brother then weaponizes his weakness and starts weaponizing it against other people.
I appreciate how intense you're getting at calling out these men that have these significant issues and are not taking steps, that are just kind of acting like it's going to be okay, but they're still putting themselves in these situations. And that's kind of what you went off on in your video. That was one thing that I applaud. I've had two.
I think we agree there. We agree on that. It sounds
we
like
agree there.
Agree.
I got a family member and a close friend that both got off of Instagram because it was causing them to
shout out to them.
Into.
That's amazing.
I applaud them. So I think that you are totally onto it, and more people need to be honest with themselves and take drastic action. Where I would maybe disagree a little bit is you have referred to like these men kind of taking the victim, making themselves victims in this scenario. Some of them do, but I guess what I heard in your video was you were kind of getting on. And I guess a question I would ask you is there any place in your mind for it to have been appropriate for someone to message Alan Parr?
I think if Alan Parr was preaching at a church and decided to be in a church, because now we're talking about a Sunday morning local ecclesia gathering, and decided to throw that image up and be like, and that was the opening. Fellas, Beyonce dropped a new album, and man, this album is demonic. Let me read you some of these lyrics. And he did that on a Sunday morning context, right? Or he did that at a men's ministry, or he did that at a Christian conference. I would be 100% with you. I'd be like, bro, you're right. That's wild. Totally inappropriate. This is clearly a space. The local ecclesia church, totally a space that we shouldn't allow this sorts of stuff. Totally inappropriate. If he did that, me and you would be 100% on the same page. I think he didn't do that because I think, and again, I haven't had an in-depth conversation with Alan about this. I just asked what he posted, and I thought maybe he posted it for, so I don't know. But I think he didn't do that because I think he understands that, hey, Instagram is not church. Social media is not church. YouTube is not church. I think that's the difference. And I guess if it was, if it was your church, I'd be like, bro, you're 100% right. Totally inappropriate. But because it's Instagram and because people are already on and there's already people posting stuff and it's already a very contaminated environment, just like the Las Vegas Strip, just like the pool, just like the beach, I would say, hey, it's not that big of a deal. And again, I just think some of this stuff, people are very nitpicky. And I think we don't understand the ramifications of what this means for women. And I get concerned about that as someone that has a girl. I don't think we understand the ramifications of how this enables men to not deal with this. And this is, again, I know it's not popular to rail against purity culture, but this is one of the aspects of purity culture that will lead a grown man to walk up to teenage girls at a beach that he doesn't know and scold them about what they have on. This is the issues that we're having with this, right? And I'm not saying you did that to Alan. That's not what I'm saying. I think you sent a DM, but clearly it was enough of an issue where, it was a big deal. And again, we get these emails. And by the way, you know why we get these emails? You flash to a cover of a girl in a pool, right? Because we're talking about like the debauchery of the world, and right, this has happened a couple times, or you had an ad on the side of your article, right? And I'm like, you know what? It's just easier to just apologize and move on because it's so exhausting to walk on eggshells for a very minority amount of people that probably aren't really struggling with this, right? And maybe you're the exception to the rule. Maybe you're one of those brothers that's like, man, you're under the pretense that you can be on social media and create a safe space for yourself. And I just go, man, I don't think that's possible, bro. I don't think that's possible. I don't have Instagram on my phone. And when I use Instagram, I use it through the Safari app. It's a terrible experience. Right. I don't have TikTok on my phone, right? I have YouTube on my phone. And this isn't even like this isn't a stronghold for me. Like, this isn't like something that like, oh, I see someone. Like, I like the idea of not being controlled by these apps. And I don't think folks should be on these apps if this is an issue. I don't think that's a wild, unreasonable conclusion. If you guys want to see Paul and Morgan's original video about this, I'll link this over here. My original video will be here. Hopefully, you were able to see two brothers that are passionate but disagree respectfully. I consider Paul a friend. I think he's a great guy. I love their ministry. I love what they're doing. I think they need to talk about this stuff more. I think they need to talk about SEX more. And so I'll see you over there. All right? Peace.